Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm just a couple of minutes late. Sorry for that. I hope you guys can hear me all right. Um, I think so. Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to TestCube's office hours, where we open our virtual office doors to you. I am Ale. I'm the developer advocate at TestCube, and today we'll be talking a little bit about parallel testing and TestCube's new feature that allows us to perform this practice with ease. Okay, hi, Kelly. Thank you. All right. So if you're new here, TestCube is a Kubernetes native testing framework for testers and developers that really helps you orchestrate, execute, and display your tests and test results for your apps that are running in Kubernetes. So if you haven't checked it out, now is the perfect time since all of our pro features are available for free on sign up. So you don't really need to do anything, input any credit card details. Simply, you just need to sign in and start testing. So that's pretty neat. So if you haven't, head over to cloud.testcube.io and give it a try. If this is your first time in one of our office hours, we usually cover a testing practice or a testing tool, show you the how to or hands-on examples with TestCube, and just have a conversation. Okay, answer any questions you might have along the way. So feel free to chime in at any time during the chat because we're always very happy to hear from you. So let's start with the agenda for today. This is usually very short, straight to the point. We're going to quickly brush over what parallel testing is. We're going to see what we have to do to set up parallel testing in Kubernetes. So we'll be using TestCube for that. And then how to monitor and report the results that we have from these parallel tests that we want to be running. Of course, at the end, we can leave some room for questions, but like I said, feel free to chime in at any point during this conversation to just make any questions or comments. Okay, so let's get right into it. So let's quickly cover what parallel testing is. So parallel testing is the practice of executing the multiple software tests at the same time, okay, simultaneously. So it's the opposite of sequential or serial testing as we know it, which requires one test to finish before you start another or the next one, right? So normally in the testing world, when we hear parallel testing, we immediately associate it or refer to executing the same test simultaneously, but in different environments. For example, like we see in the diagram, let's see that we have an automated functional test that we want to perform across 10, 50 different browsers, devices, or operating system configurations. So in the QA world, parallelizing these tests normally would mean that you would follow an approach of grouping them in test suites or test collections, as you may know them, that consist of the same test conditions, aka just the same test, and then running that same test but in different environments. So like it's, as we can see in the diagram, using Chrome, using Firefox, using Edge. All right, so what are the advantages of parallel testing? So obviously the main benefit of parallel testing is that we have reduced testing time. So let's just think about that same scenario that I told you about, in which we have to run one test across 50 different environments. So that test can take us, 2 minutes. So if we're running it 50 times, that would be 100 minutes of runtime if we go sequentially, right? But if we were to group them, to run them in parallel, let's say that we group them in groups of 5, for example, then our total execution in parallel would go down to only 20 minutes. So definitely that's the biggest advantage of doing parallel testing. And then with this reduced time, obviously, comes the advantage of having a faster bug detection and obviously optimization in our usage of resources, because we are distributing workloads. We're not just throwing everything together. So when it comes to Kubernetes, though, we can actually take advantage of Kubernetes features to take parallelization to the next level. So instead of being limited to one test running X amount of times, we can run X amount of multiple tests of multiple test types. So you're not really limited to just running end-to-end or UI tests, but you can also do API tests. You can also do load tests. You can also do performance tests, or any type really in parallel with each other. So you can really mix and match when you take advantage of Kubernetes capabilities, which in this case is, executing Kubernetes jobs in parallel. So let's see how this translates using TestCube and TestCube's test suites. Okay, so commonly you would have in a team, let's say you have your front end and your back end team, and each of them have, all the services are deployed in Kubernetes clusters. Each team is responsible for testing their own work. So naturally, they're not going to be using the same tools, all right? So you might have the front-end team using Cypress tests, and then the back-end engineers will be using Postman to test their APIs. Then at the same time, you have the QA team, right? The QA team is going to be responsible for all of these releases, and they want to make sure that everything is in check, that every test is completed successfully. But then how do you make this division of orchestrating the different types of tests involved? All right. So in this case, what the QA team would need to do is create pipelines that have each team's test into one, right? So this can be really easily done with TestCube's test suites. So each team can run their tests against clusters on their own, and then QA can create test resources and add tests written by all teams that all teams can use separately. So let's take a look at test suites specifically. So test suites are pretty much just the orchestration of different test steps. So this can be done sequentially, serially, or it can be done in parallel, which is the feature that I want to show you today. So this in TestCube is pretty much just defined as a JSON. You can we can see, for example, over here in each step, you can define either one or multiple steps. You can also add delays or other things. All right. So as we can see on the first step over here, we are running API and dashboard tests in parallel. All right. On the first step. Then we see a delay. We add a delay. Then we can run 2 more tests with a delay in between, and then 2 serial tests. So this is fully customizable and even easier through the dashboard, because you will get to visualize this JSON file. So as you can see, this is pretty simple. All right. This is just like you. Ideally, what you want is for your QA team to be able to organize these things without having to worry about everything that's going behind and in between Kubernetes intricacies. So let's take a look at how that would be done through TestCube. I'm going to share my screen. Just give me a second. Okay. Okay. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now. And right now I'm signed into TestCube Cloud. And like I said, having this scenario, for example, where you want to test your application or your software against different environments, against different devices, or you want to just be concurrent, right? So let's say that we have all these types of tests, and ideally, you don't want to be testing them sequentially because it can take really long if you want to test in massive amounts. So let's head over to test suites over here, and we can create one over here. Let's say that let's create one that's called just API. No, let's call it load test. We're going to be using some load testing tools, and you can add a description. Let's say test suite, testing different loads on our web app, just as an example. So the cool thing about TestCube is that it's super intuitive. We recently added the capability of you to simply drag and drop through the dashboard. So like I showed you before previously, you can still do this through your terminal. All you need to do is create the JSON file with the batch process of the order you want to follow for your tests, and then that's it. So what we have over here is pretty much a JSON visualizer. So let's add our first test. So let's say that I showed you the test I have. Let's say that I want to do some K6 for load testing. All right, we add that. And then we say, but at the same time, I also want to check the response with a CURL test. Okay, so then I add CURL test. And then I also want to check a response from my API. So let's add a Postman test. And then we can add a Postman test. Those can run at the same time. All right. This is pretty much how you would do it. You just pile them up. Then let's say that I want there to be a delay. Oh, a delay. Sorry. So that I want to add a delay. And it's super simple how I can just say, let's wait for a second. And then I'm going to add a bunch of CURL tests again, just checking if everything's going as it should be. And then I'm going to add, let's say, 4 of them. And then to close off, I'm going to add a K6 test. So this is, this is pretty much how simple it is. By default, the concurrency level for parallel tests for TestCube is set at 10, but you can redefine it through the terminal as well using the concurrency option in your command. So let's say that this is what I want to do. Now I want to save it. And our test suite is created. We can also see the definition for a test suite. You can see that everything is as in the JSON. And then we can run our first execution. So now for monitoring and reporting, like I said, TestCube is really a way for you to simplify running tests for your apps in Kubernetes, right? We concentrate all of that as well in a centralized way so that you can have access to all of your logs in real time. You can watch the executions and follow them, have access to the artifacts produced by your testing tool. So let's take a look at this execution, and we can immediately see that it's running the first step, right? The first batch, and it's running the K6 test, CURL test, and then a Postman test. Then we'll have a delay. Then we'll run the 4 CURL tests, and then finally we'll close off with a K6 test. So these 3 have run successfully. We've had the delay successfully, and now we're running the 4 CURL tests simultaneously. While they're running as well, you can also just click and you can see the individual execution, and you can actually see the logs in real time. So you have that. that one's still running, but as you can see, it's pretty fast. I mean, we could even test how long it would have taken us if we run this sequentially. And in total, this test suite only took us 1 minute and 9 seconds. So that is pretty incredible and really easy to set up. You don't have to worry about anything. We have a question. Can these tests run automatically once I set up a suite of tests? Yes. So TestCube also allows you to set up scheduling for your tests. So you can immediately go over to your settings, and then over here in scheduling, you can create schedule templates where you have these tests running under certain conditions or at certain times, right? You can also leverage using test triggers. So let's say that I want to do all of this whenever there's a change on my website. Let's say that I have a web app that I'm constantly making changes to, obviously, right? So let's say that you want to configure it in a way that it runs all of these load tests every time I push a new change to my web app to see that it's returning the status that I want or the response that I want from my API. You can also do that from using test triggers over here. And when you set up test triggers, you can also tell it, okay, well, I want you to run this test suite whenever there's a new deployment on my app. So it's pretty intuitive, pretty easy to use. I can actually show you a little bit. So you can just create a new trigger over here, and then you create a condition. Select the Kubernetes resource. Like I said, you can change it or trigger it by deployment. If there's a change in your config maps, if there's a change in your service or a certain Kubernetes event that you just simply want to test after all the time. And you can have these test suites ready for any scenario like that. So that's pretty much it. You get all these information as well readily available for you. You have analytics, and then you also have the logs for all of your tests individually. Then, of course, if you were running a Cypress test or a SOAP UI test or a Playwright test that produces an artifact, that's readily available as well in artifacts. K6 doesn't produce anything. That's why I can't really show you that, but you would ideally have everything as you would when you're running a test individually. It really doesn't change anything except you are grouping everything together. So that's it. I'm going to go back to the presentation. In case you have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Feel free to reach out to us through Discord. We're super happy to talk to you all the time, see how we can improve our features for you. But as you can see, TestCube makes parallel testing extremely easy thanks to its intuitive UI. Adding and executing tests is very quick. You get access to logs and results right there. Just a few clicks. You don't need to do anything else. As a QA manager or a QA lead, this is great for setting it up for your different teams. So make sure to check it out at cloud.testkube.io. And of course, if you want to see more features like these, if you want to try them out or see us demo them for you, then make sure to sign up to our office hours that happen bi-weekly. And check out testkube.io/learn, where we also share snippets of little features of testing practices or tools and how you can really take advantage of them with TestCube. So that's it for today. If there's anything else, then feel free to contact us or contact our product lead, Bruno. Thank you.